To order. Good afternoon, members of the MAG Management Committee. This meeting is now officially called to order. For those around the table, we ask that you turn on your microphone when speaking so that participating virtually all of those can hear you. For those participating via Zoom, please remember to unmute your device before speaking and mute when you are not speaking to create a positive experience for all attendees. Phone participants should use *6 to mute, unmute, and *9 to raise your hand. Thank you for attending today's meeting. The MAG public comment process provides opportunities for members of the public to comment on items scheduled on today's agenda or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. There are 3 opportunities that are provided for public comment, including the call to the audience, consent agenda, and actions items to be heard. MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website prior to the meeting, as long as the comments are received at least 1 hour prior to the posted start time for the meeting. If you would like to comment on today's meeting, please fill out the white request to speak card located on the information table in the hallway. Please be sure to indicate the item for which you want to speak and give it to the designated MAG staff member. If you parked in the garage, remember to validate your ticket. Parking validators are available on the information table hallway, and I have forgotten, so please remind me as well. For those who purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. And please note that hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members, and I'll ask the staff and Andrea to help us with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will call each name alphabetically. Please indicate if you are present. Patrick Banger. Mario Paniagua for Jeffrey Barton.
Here.
Thank you. Jean Blackman. Christopher Brady. Andrew Ching. Dan Cotterman. Kathleen Curley. Philip Dorchester. Crystal Dykes.
Present.
Thank you. Carrie Dyrick. Stephen Erno.
Here.
Thank you. Jeff Graves for Lisa Garcia.
Here.
Thank you. Mark Sanders for Director Halakowski.
Here.
Thank you. Ben Bitter for Rick Horst.
Here.
Thank you. Julie Cairns.
Here.
Thank you. Joe Kymack.
Here.
Thank you. John Cross.
Here.
Thank you. Jeff Kulaga.
Here.
Thank you. Leo Liu.
Here.
Thank you. Reyes Medrano.
Here.
Thank you. Jessica Mefford Miller.
Here.
Thank you. Jennifer Jack for Brian Myers.
Here.
Thank you. Grady Miller.
Here.
Thank you. Gary Nice. Marshall Pimentel for Shirlene Panilla. Kevin Phelps. Bryant Powell. Thank you. Joy Rich. Jim Thompson, Bill Murray standing in for Jim Thompson.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Jeff Tyne.
Here.
Thank you. Catherine Valenzuela.
Here.
Thank you. Matthew Williams.
Present.
Thank you. Tracy Montgomery for Bob Williamroth.
Present.
Thank you. Joshua Wright.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we have quorum.
Great. Thank you very much. And I do ask all of you to please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. And thank you. Our next item is a call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not in the agenda or that are not on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to audience agenda item unless the committee requests an exception to this limit. Members of the public who are attending in person may deliver their comments from the lectern in the front of the room, and you have 3 minutes to complete your comments. A timer is provided to assist you. When the light on the timer changes from green to yellow, you have 1 minute remaining. If the light turns red, a buzzer will sound, meaning your allotted time has expired. I do have one request to speak cards for the agenda item from Miss Diane Barker. Thank you, Miss Barker.
Still don't have this. Okay. Area, which specifically is downtown Phoenix, and I see my city manager is there. And I appreciate that you do come out, and I've had good dialogue with you and you do transfer my communications. So I do appreciate that. And I'm here today just to encourage all of you to put out the good stories that we have in diversity in this community. Not only is it good in a fighting political climate, but I think it's really representative of what I see. I see so much more good. That's one reason why I use transit. I see more good stories on the transit than I see bad. But I see some people helping one another. And for this area not being used to transit, in the last 10 years, I've seen people start adapting and they make way, whether it's on, in the light rail or on the buses. I don't see people complaining when there's a person of disabilities that we're waiting for to get their wheelchair on. And that's one reason why I keep taking transit, because I can find some humanity there rather than, I'm sorry, but the passing car that throws out the Slurpee and could care less because you're a pedestrian and you're not in a car. So I'm appealing to, because we're going to have a lot of people coming here this winter. We get Martin Luther King and the Super Bowl in and near the time frame. So let's point out some of these stories that we've had in this area of some challenges that we've had to overcome to become the American melting pot. At one time, the city of Phoenix was known as the All-American City, and maybe it still is, but it's not advertised. So, it may sound a little romantic, but I think that this area, with your help, city managers, can do a lot more good. It's not all about like the GPEC. I was at the Board of Supervisors, putting out economic diversity. It's talking about human beings that are able to live and navigate together in the valley. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Parker. Great. And I believe, staff, we do have no written comments at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have not received any written comments for this agenda item or anything on the agenda for today.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. At this point, we'll move to agenda item 4, the Executive Director's Report. And MAG Executive Director Eric Anderson will offer this. This item, of course, is for information. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Management Committee. A few items for your interest today. If we go to the next slide. So on September 2nd, we were honored to host the Sonoran Secretary of Economy of IEA and the state of Sonora representative in Arizona, David Figueroa. David's office is actually down at the Capitol. So we had a really good discussion, brief discussion, but talked about infrastructure, what we're doing here, and some of the infrastructure plans that the state of Sonora, led by Governor Durazo, have planned for Sonora. So a lot of exciting things happening there. Go to the next slide. As you know, we also hosted the 9th annual Arizona Council meeting. Very well attended. The room was packed. In fact, I think we're going to have to look for a bigger room next time. This was the first in-person Arizona meeting we've had in a couple of years. So I think everybody was anxious to get back together and see one another. So very good program. Appreciate the participation of our leadership. Mayor Hermosillo was the MC for the event. We had a number of elected officials. Mayor Wires participated, as you see there on the slide. So Mayor Gallego also gave her remarks and really well attended, very well received. So a lot of people just drop in wondering what was going on and they stayed. So once again, I think that's good sign of success. Go to the next slide. As also part of the league conference, the end of August, we had a session on transportation. We had Mayor Harkey participate in that discussion along with former City of Maricopa Mayor Christian Price, Kevin Adam, who heads up the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council, and our own John Bullen gave a presentation about the impacts of the governor's veto on our bills. So once again, a lot of good questions. I think it was a good session and raised the awareness statewide of what we're trying to do here in this region to extend our dedicated sales tax. We can go to the next slide. Lastly, September 20th, we're going to have our annual Age-Friendly Arizona Conference on September 20th. It is, we have over 300 registered people. It is available virtually or in person. So if you're interested, the event is free, but you do have to register on that. Great program, and look forward to seeing you there. Mr. Chair, that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate that. And we'll move to agenda item 5, the approval of the consent agenda. So our next item is items 5A through 5K that are on the consent agenda item. First off, I'll ask, are there any members of the management committee that have questions or request a presentation of any of these items? Okay, seeing none, then next, for members of the public, there is the opportunity to speak and have 3 minutes total to comment on consent items and indicate on the white request to speak card which agenda items you will be addressing. Your comments must pertain to those items. Those wishing to comment on action items will be provided that opportunity at the time that item is heard. I have received 1 request to speak for the consent agenda item, and I'll ask Ms. Barker.
Thank you again, Chairman Diane Barker. Speaking on the consent agenda, starting not only at the beginning with 5A, but I'll go through K. And, you know, basically all of this is contingent on getting the Prop 400 passed because you have a conformity that you got to meet, which was signed July, what was it, the 18th of 2022. And in order to stay within that and project budgets, you need to have a plan. And, you know, I was over Board of Supervisors today and they says, gee, you know, Jack Sellers, who's on a transportation board here, says, you know, all the whole discussion where it was speaking with the GPEC and which is the economic was about passing Prop 400. So basically, I'm not here to really go ahead and promote that, but what I'm just trying to say, the conundrum that we have, if you don't have a plan, then how can you even be talking about everything on 5 through K? Because, you know, we spend time with our staff members, Dean Giles, Mr. Barber, Bolin, and Castro and Warner and others bringing you these presentations. But fundamentally, even ADOT in the red letter they're going to give them $2 million to start buying right away. That is just minuscule in relation to what we're facing. Okay, so now that sounds like a complaint which it is. I seem to be good on that. But you know what? I started thinking, Diane, you need two things. You need to listen more and you need to provide some remedies. So what I am suggesting is that, you know, with this political climate that we have that's so divisive, and it's still going to keep on going on until the election, but we need to tell more stories about the positive things that we have done for a diverse community, not only in air quality, but in transportation and multimodal. And get these people that are doing contracting, they're out of state, they need to have in their contracts. They understand Arizona changing temperatures and their items and service for procurement will do well and serve human beings in Arizona. I don't want to get my hands burnt by these metal containers that people out of state have been putting here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And at this point, staff, do we have any written comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've not received any written comments for this or any.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you.
So at this point, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 5A through 5K?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Cairns and seconded by Mr. Ching. Can I have a voice vote for those in the room? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Right, and staff will ask that you take a roll call of the members participating virtually.
I will go through the names of members participating virtually. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Patrick Banger.
Aye.
Thank you. Crystal Dykes.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Graves.
Aye.
Thank you. Mark Sanders.
Aye.
Thank you. Ben Bitter.
Aye.
Thank you. John Cross.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Kulaga.
Aye.
Thank you. Leah Liu.
Aye.
Thank you. Reyes Medrano.
Aye.
Thank you. Grady Miller.
Aye.
Thank you. Kevin Phelps.
Aye.
Thank you. Catherine Valenzuela.
Aye.
Thank you. Joshua Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So on January 6, 2020, the US DOT Federal Railroad Administration issued a notice of funding opportunity for the Railroad Crossing Elimination Program for federal fiscal year 2022. This is made available by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA. And for this grant opportunity, a total of $573,264,000 is available. It's on. Excuse me. So this money is made available to approve American rail infrastructure to enhance rail safety, grade crossings that are frequently blocked by trains, and reduce the impacts to freight movements and railroad operations that they may have on underserved communities. This item is a request for regional support for a grant proposal. Next slide, please. So again, this funding opportunity is made available for IIJA. And as a reminder, earlier this year, Mr. Patrick Stone, who is manager of our TIP program, presented this year on IIJA, and in his presentation emphasized the significant investment towards competitive-based grant opportunities, not only for existing grant programs, but there is an addition of new programs. So this represents a new program with IIJA. So currently there's approximately $185 million cycle program to fund all phases. So pre-design, right-of-way, utility, final design, and construction. Next slide, please. So this graphic shows the existing interchange configuration. It's a six-legged intersection with an overpass for the through movements of Indian School Road, but it currently includes 2 at-grade crossings of the BNSF Railroad. Next slide, please. The Federal Railway Administration tracks safety data at the nation's more than 200,000 railroad crossings. In 2016, they released a list of the railroad crossings in the United States where multiple incidents have occurred. And this list included 15 crossings where 10 or more incidents had occurred in the previous decade. This intersection of US 60 35th Avenue and Indian School is the second highest location in the country for incidents. It had 21 incidents. And in the 5 years since that report was released, we've had another 5 incidents. So this is a short video just showing the operations and the different conflict points that you'll see here. The railroad is kind of up to the top left of the image here. Next slide, please. And these are the proposed improvements. New connector roads in various locations that will restore access and facilitate the redistribution of traffic movements. Relocated ramps on the westbound to northwestbound traffic. But of most importance, new bridge structures at Indian School Road that will pass over the BNSF Railway and Grand Avenue, as well as new bridge structures on 35th Avenue to pass over, again, the railroad and Grand Avenue. Next slide, please. So the graphic on this slide is a rendering of the proposed interchange once constructed. Again, there's approximately 185 million in program funding to construct this grade separation. And once it is entirely reconstructed, it'll elevate the 4 legs of Indian School Road and 35th Avenue over BNSF and Grand Avenue. This will allow for the removal of conflict points with the railroad, and it'll improve the traffic flow along US 60 for people from the Northwest Valley. Regional funding for the 35th Avenue Van Buren BR project has been identified in the Regional Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Plan that's in the extension for Prop 400. Next slide, please. So MAG has taken the lead on the development and submission of this grant proposal, but we have strong support and partnership from ADOT, BNSF, and City of Phoenix. These proposals are due October 4th of this year. Current project estimates show that we're going to be anticipating a request of approximately $75 to $100 million. And any funding received through this grant would reduce the amount of regional funding that is needed to implement the project. Next slide, please. So the action requested today is to recommend approval of support for the US 60 Grand Avenue, 35th Avenue, Indian School Road, Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant Proposal. Chair, members of Management Committee, I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you, Quinn. Do any members have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
just a quick comment. I want to thank MAG staff for their assistance in putting this project together, for working with the City of Phoenix to look at how to accommodate future high capacity transit needs in this area as we look to extend our first bus rapid transit route along 35th Avenue and potential high capacity transit in the future for Indian School. So I really want to thank you and very supportive of this item.
Thank you, Mr. Paniagua. Any other comments? All right, can I have a motion to recommend approval for agenda item number 6?
Motion to approve.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Williams. Did I have a second?
Second from Reyes.
Second from Mr. Modrano. At this point, we'll can have a voice vote in the room. Those that are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. And staff will ask for a roll call vote for all members participating virtually.
I will go through the list of members participating virtually. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Patrick Banger.
Aye.
Thank you. Crystal Dykes.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Graves.
Aye.
Thank you. Mark Sanders.
Aye.
Thank you. Ben Bitter.
Aye.
Thank you. John Cross.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Kulaga.
Aye.
Thank you. Leo Lu.
Aye.
Thank you. Reyes Madrano.
Aye.
Thank you. Grady Miller.
Aye.
Thank you. Kevin Phelps.
Aye.
Thank you. Catherine Valenzuela.
Aye.
Thank you. Joshua Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Lisa. And item 7 is a third project deferral request, City of Tempe, 8th Street, Rural Road to McClintock Drive. This will be presented by MAG Transportation Improvement Program Supervisor Patrick Stone and our guest speaker, Chase Wallman from the City of Tempe. And this item is for recommendation of approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of Management Committee. As always, pleasure to be here to present this item. As noted, this is a third deferral request for the City of Tempe. This is the first time a third deferral request has been taken through the MAG committee process. Before I introduce Mr. Wallman from the City of Tempe, I want to take a moment just to orient the committee on what we're discussing today and the impact and importance of deferrals. Beginning back in 2013, ADOT moved the region to a use or lose when it comes to federal funding. What that means is any funding not obligated in the fiscal year in which it's programmed is subject to being taken back by the state. MAG's never lost any funding, but deferrals do actually make it difficult. We have to reallocate that funding when a project defers. So it's critical that we keep track of projects. Since ADOT instituted the policy in 2013, there have been 10 second deferrals that have gone through the committee process and been approved. This will be the 11th. Well, I guess third deferral, excuse me. One other thing, as part of the deferral process, the agency needs to identify and explain the issues that led to the deferral. So part of the discussion today is the city will be presenting what's occurred since that second deferral occurred, what steps the city's taken to address those items, and then what their plan is moving forward, both from a schedule and a financial commitment component. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Chase Wallman, Senior Transportation Planner with the City of Tempe. Chase.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Mr. Chair, members of the MAG Management Committee, my name is Chase Wallman, Senior Transportation Planner with the City of Tempe. And thanks for the opportunity today to present Tempe's third deferral request of our 8th Street Streetscape and Multi-Use Path project. Next slide, please. Just get everyone oriented of where this project is within the region. Project's located in Tempe, just south of University Drive along 8th Street, from Rural Road to McClintock Drive. The project's located just across the street from ASU's main campus, as well as the University Drive and Rural Light Rail Station. Along the project corridor, we have numerous historically significant sites, which I'll detail later. Around the project area, it's primarily denser multifamily residential. We also have Creamery Park in one of the highest transit ridership locations for the city's free neighborhood circulator orbit routes. The project also makes up part of Tempe's Bike Boulevard system. So this 8th Street project will make up part of the east-west running Sprocket route is what it's called, that runs from the western border of the city to the eastern border. That's located in the green. And then in the future, this will also be intersected by another Bike Boulevard route along Dorsey Lane, which is our future chain route. Next slide, please. Just a quick summary of what we're proposing with this project. This project's proposing 1 mile of on-street streetscape improvements, as well as an additional half-mile off-street multi-use path. So some of those improvements are listed here. They include high visibility crosswalks and bicycle lanes. It'll also include ADA improvements such as directional ramps and traffic calming. And then as far as the off-street multi-use path, that will have lighting, landscaping, and the addition of public art as well. Next slide, please. So this project's not only significant for the city of Tempe, but it's also historically significant for the region as a whole. This photo on the left is showing one of the first highway systems in the US, and this was the Bankhead Highway System, which traveled along our project corridor and took the early automobile users from DC to San Diego. On the top left of the picture on the left, you'll see a larger building. This is where present day Four Peaks is. This is a historic ice factory and creamery in the 1890s. This bottom photo of the White House in the teal, this is the Elias Rodriguez House. This is one of the oldest original adobe structures remaining in the valley. And then on the bottom right, you have the Kirkland McKinney ditch. This is also in our project area adjacent to 8th Street. This is one of the first waterways that supplied the early settlement of Tempe, as well as the Hayden Flour Mill. Next slide, please. So a timeline of this project. This project was originally programmed for construction in 2017. So with that, we started our preliminary design process and public outreach in 2014. We got as far as our 95% final design plans in March of 2016. And this is when our original environmental consultant found part of what would later be called Feature 7, which is a Hohokam architectural feature. So part of that feature was found, and resulting from that, the city sought additional consultation from the 4 Southern tribes, ADOT and FHWA, on a path forward for the archaeological work. It was there that it was recommended that the city retain a new environmental consultant that was more familiar with the Section 106 process, as well as Hohokam features and pre-classic features. So at that time, we deferred the project from 2017 to 2018. It was then when we had our new environmental consultant on board, and they continued with the phase 1 data testing, and that they discovered that the feature was much more significant and required much more archaeological work besides just the data testing. This required data recovery and analysis scope that would extend the project schedule far beyond our first deferral. This is when the city came and requested the second deferral from MAG. At the time, we pushed the project out as far as we could, which was 2022. Since then, we made significant progress on the project and the associated archaeological work. We finished the data recovery, analysis, testing, and reports, and all the additional consultations with the 4 Southern tribes. Since then, in December of this past year, we received approval on our remediation plan. And this plan is what allows the project to continue forward from that 95% design, and allows us to finish out the project and revise the design based on the remediation report, and take the project to the point where it could be bid for construction. So part of that remediation plan was that we would have ongoing monitoring. When construction starts, we will avoid construction activity in that architectural feature that was found, as well as the opportunity to implement interpretive elements along the project corridor that would tell the story of the history of 8th Street for the path users. Next slide, please. So talking more about this Feature 7 and the significant find that we uncovered, this is an exhibit showing all the data testing and recovery locations along the project corridor from Dorsey to Rural. What you see in the black are mortuary and non-mortuary features that were recovered from the site, as well as additional trenching locations along the project corridor. And the red icon that you see is that Feature 7, that significant Hohokam architectural feature, which is outlined in red. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view, and I think it does a really good job of capturing just the scale of this find. You can see the adjacent sidewalk just to the south there. So you can begin to see some of the walls of this building, and just the scale of this architectural feature. Next slide, please. This is a view again of that same feature, but obviously from the ground level, looking east, and you could start to see some of the materiality of what this structure was actually built out of. Next slide, please. And I think this slide really describes the detail of the archaeological work that we had to conduct. This is going into as fine of a detail as outlining footprints on the site. Next slide, please. So to reiterate our request today, we're requesting that our third deferral to move the project from FY22 to FY24. And this is because we have our approval of our remediation plan, which means that we can revise our design accordingly, finish out the project from 95% to 100, and get the project to the point where we can bid for construction. Next slide, please. The city remains committed to the project. To date, the city has spent over close to $1.5 million on the required archaeological work associated with the project. The city continues to program all the funding necessary for finishing the design and construction of the project through the city's 5-year capital improvement program. And then, as always, project management staff will be assigned through the completion of the project. Next slide, please. And so with that, where we are today, if we're successful with this third deferral request, is that we will continue to update those plans as I described to take it from 95% to 100. So that will take part in early 2023. We will plan to submit the final plans, specifications, and estimates in early 2024 and obligate for construction in the middle part of FY 2024. And with that, I thank you again for the opportunity to present Tempe's third deferral request for the 8th Street project, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Wallman. Mr. Stone, do members have any questions or comments on this item? Great. Okay, at that point, I will entertain a motion for approval on agenda item number 7.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question there first?
Of course, Mr. Williams.
Reading the report, of course, it's certainly not Tempe's fault, the historical complications that you've encountered. But reading the report on this on the federal funding, realistically, what do we think the chances are of losing federal funding on this issue? I mean, I see it's the first time we've ever asked for a third deferral. I mean, do we think it's a pretty safe bet that it's not going to affect our federal funding? Or I guess I'm asking you, how bad are the odds that it affects our federal funding, or do we know?
I might direct that to MAG staff for that. I would say as far as Tempe is concerned, we're very confident in our schedule to finish out the project as we described here. It's a minor revision to our design. So we're very confident in the schedule that we built here, but I would direct it to MAG for the
Thank you.
question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Williams. So the federal funding that's currently programmed in 22, MAG has already worked with ADOT to account for the potential deferral because regardless of the action taken today, this project is not going in fiscal year 2022. So we've accounted for that funding. What we then would be looking at is the confidence level of the city delivering the project in fiscal year 2024. Hence why they've provided the schedule showing that they have a path to success. But as far as the current funding, we've already accounted for that funding.
Okay. I just want to check and make sure. Thank you. Thank you for
you.
your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Stone. Any other questions or comments? Okay, and I'll look for a motion for approval.
I'd like to make the motion.
Okay. And
I will second.
who was that was asking for second?
Calaga from Guadalupe.
Great. So a motion and a second. I'm going to have a voice vote for those in the room. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. And staff will do a roll call vote for all members participating virtually.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I will go through the list of members participating virtually. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Patrick Banger. Crystal Dykes.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Graves.
Aye.
Thank you. Mark Sanders.
Aye.
Thank you. Ben Bitter.
Aye.
Thank you. John Cross.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Kulaga.
Aye.
Thank you. Leo Liu.
Aye.
Thank you. Reyes Medrano.
Aye.
Thank you. Grady Miller.
Aye.
Thank you. Kevin Phelps.
Aye.
Thank you. Catherine Valenzuela.
Aye.
Thank you. Joshua Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much. And just for clarification, so that was Jennifer Jack that made the motion and Jeff Klaga that made the second. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, the second project deferral request, Fort McDowell, Yavapai Nation, the dirt road paving project. This will also be presented by MAG Transportation Improvement Program Supervisor, Mr. Stoney. He will introduce our guest speaker. And this item again is for recommendation for approval. Thank you, Mr. Stone.
Again, thank you, Chair, members of the Management Committee. I will not reiterate what I sent for the Tempe project. It still applies to this project as well. Again, the importance of deferral actions and then the requirement of the member agency to establish the need for the second deferral and what they're doing to mitigate the deferral, their schedule, and then their plan to success. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Mark Frank, the environmental manager for the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation. He will be presenting this item virtually. Mr. Frank.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Good afternoon, Med Management Committee. My name is Mark Frank. I'm the Environmental Manager of the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation. As a footnote, my first job in Arizona was working for MAG in 1977 through 1981. And that was a very exciting time. I'd like to introduce my partner, Erica McAlvin. Erica is the Planning, Land Use, and Transportation Manager here at Fort McDowell. And if there's any tough questions, she'll be the one to answer them. Again, I'll go through this. I know how busy you are. I'll go through this rather quickly. You have the printouts in front of you. This project is to pave, redesign, and make more safe 3 dirt roads here at Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation. The roadway segments are called Cooney Way, Sandtrap Road, and Guma Road. The combined length of these 3 paving projects is about 3/4 of a mile. The purpose of the project is to primarily reduce PM10 here at Fort McDowell, dust emissions created by vehicles on these 3 dirt roads. We are also making some safety and drainage improvements in addition to the paving. We also need and are in the process of correcting the right-of-way documents to reflect public rights-of-way or BIA rights-of-way and not tribal rights-of-way. We obviously intend to use the approved federal funding through MAG of $892,831. And we are requesting a second 2-year extension to this project. Next slide, please. Initially, meetings were held in 2015 to identify this and other projects. Fort McDowell committed to the improvement of air quality and safety on these roads by wanting to pave these 3 dirt roads here at Fort McDowell. We have a number of dirt roads here. Fort McDowell is committed not only to paving these roads, but by doing so, it will make them all-season roads as opposed to during the rainy season. These roads are very difficult to traverse, especially for school buses and postal vehicles. Next slide, please. Project history. The construction documents are 85% complete. Once we get the right-of-way stuff corrected and the BIA designations, it will be 100% complete. The primary reason for our second request for an extension is the COVID pandemic. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the impacts of the COVID pandemic on your operations, whether it's contractors, supplies, just having staff in the office has been an issue over the past 2 years. In the past couple of years, the project has had 2 design consultants and 3 surveyors. We are currently under new direction. Wood Patel is our surveyor to do all the resurveying and correcting of the rights-of-way to reflect public ownership. We expect that to be done in 2.5 to 3 months. We expect and hope for BIA final approval of those documents in the spring of 2023. We hope to update all final clearances by the summer of 2023 and procurement and construction of the paving project by fall of 2024. The next 3 slides, Patrick, if you just want to go through them very quickly, are simply an identification of the 3 roads that we are proposing to pave: Sandtrap Road, Cooney Way, and Guma Road. The second to final slide is the budget breakdown for this particular project. It identifies Fort McDowell costs, as well as MAG costs, and it breaks us up between road design and construction. The total grant cost, of course, as you know, is $892,831. Having said that, the Fort McDowell High Nation respectfully requests a second 2-year extension on the road paving project. That ends our presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Frank. Thank you, Erica and Patrick. Do any members have questions or comments at this time? Okay, with that, can I have a motion to recommend approval for agenda item number 8?
This is Grady from Fountain Hills. I move approval.
Okay, motion from Mr. Miller. And do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Williams. So can I have a voice vote in the room? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. And staff will do a roll call vote for all members participating virtually.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will call each name of those participating virtually. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Patrick Banger.
Aye.
Thank you. Crystal Dykes.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Graves.
Aye.
Thank you. Mark Sanders.
Aye.
Thank you. Ben Bitter.
Aye.
Thank you. John Cross.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Kulaga.
Aye.
Thank you. Leo Lu.
Aye.
Thank you. Reyes Medrano.
Aye.
Thank you. Grady Miller.
Aye.
Thank you. Marshall Pimentel.
Aye.
Thank you. Kevin Phelps.
Aye.
Thank you. Catherine Valenzuela.
Aye.
Thank you. Joshua Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much. And we'll move to item number 9, the Federal Transportation Discretionary Grants September 22 update. And we don't have to go far to have our presenter, MAG Transportation Improvement Program Supervisor, Mr. Stone. So again, this item is for information. Thank you, Mr. Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be here all afternoon. If I can get the next slide, please. So I wanted to take the opportunity first to set the overview for this presentation. This is actually an update to a presentation I made earlier this year to Transportation Policy Committee. So first, discussion of the Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act, very high level discussion of that. I'm going to move into talking somewhat about federal transportation funding, and then the focus of the presentation is really on the discretionary grant opportunities. If I could get the next slide, please. So the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law or Bill, signed into law but last November, largest investment in infrastructure in the nation's history, significantly increased both formula funding and then grant funding. And really the emphasis on this conversation today, it created a lot of new grant opportunities in addition to adding additional funding to existing grants. Next slide, please. So transportation funding in the region, federal transportation funding really follows two paths. There's either those funds that are directly allocated to MAG either through formula, or they're allocated to MAG through formula funding, either directly from ADOT or directly to MAG itself. And then second, there's discretionary funding that member agencies compete for. Next slide, please. So before I talk about grants, I really wanted to talk about how those funding opportunities work. And we'll pause for a moment. We have two buckets here, if you see on the screen. One is those regional projects, mainly contained within the Freeway Lifecycle Project Program and the Transit Lifecycle Program. And then secondarily, the local projects that are more of that suballocated funding. What you saw earlier today in Ms. Castro's presentation is an example of one of those regional projects. That project that she identified is actually contained in the Freeway Lifecycle Program. And I'll come back and kind of reiterate to that point a few times in my presentation. Next slide, please. So first I want to talk about regional projects. These are the larger, and as we saw in the previous project, capital intensive grants that have a benefit region-wide. They really involve a significant non-federal funding level. Most of these grants, they're looking for more than just the minimum match contributions identified in the grant notices. And it also, and you saw it with Quinn's presentation, a high level of coordination. You had 4 different agencies participating in that conversation about that grant opportunity. And that's quite typical for those larger grants. And then the other thing, and I thought Quinn did a very good job of mentioning this point, that these grant awards can have the opportunity of raising the funding, rising tide. Next slide, please. So local grants, these are typically smaller grants focused on individual community improvements. A lot of the new grants in the IIJA are of this type. They're smaller grants and they have very specific purposes. You'll see as we go through some of the grant opportunities, they have a very unique focus. So each one is stands on its own, but it really is intended for those smaller smaller agencies. Next slide, please. So the regional approach MAG has taken, it's in 3 components. The first is, and we're still unfortunately waiting on some guidance. We get the guidance from USDOT. This mainly comes, there's programmatic guidance, and then they have the NOFO that actually explains what they're intending to do. We then take that, we backstop it against the existing tools and data that MAG has. And you saw it with the rail project, screening those regional projects to find those that would be most competitive. We think we have a very competitive grant application. And then also taking the tools we have available and also looking at local projects. Are there some of those that make sense that we could actually, as a region, compete for? And then finally, it's sort of a circular process. So after the grant cycle, we'll refine this process. A lot of these grants are new. We've never seen them before, so we don't know what they're looking for. We've seen RAISE grants before. We know what kind of projects get funded as RAISE grants. Again, congratulations to the city of Phoenix. But we don't know what a Safe Streets for All grant is going to look like. We don't know where USDOT will focus, but once we do, it'll help to inform those conversations when these grants come around next year. Next slide, please. So what I wanted to do is go through a listing of the current grant opportunities. These are also in your agenda packet, but just kind of at a very high level, discuss grants. The first 2 on the screen here, one is the Tribal Transportation Program Safety Grant. That's actually an annual grant. It comes up every year. Looking at reducing transportation injuries on tribal lands. And then one of the new grants, the Safe Streets and Roads for All, big grant program, $1 billion. Again, kind of the same, sort of a similar focus to tribal transportation, really looking at preventing and reducing deaths and injuries on roadways. Both of these grants are actually due tomorrow. No pressure. Next slide, please. I won't really reiterate too much on this one. Quinn, I thought, did a wonderful job talking about this. This is the Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant, over $500 million available. Applications are due October 4th, so that's coming up. This next one, it's a very unusual grant. We included it because it is a grant that member agencies could apply for, but it is unique. So this is a singular award grant. There will be one grant awarded out of this so the $6 million will fund one project nationwide. But it's a program, it's a grant to establish and amplify public transportation, emphasizing what it's really looking at is those people that have transportation insecurity. So a unique grant, but again, it's available. Applications due October 11th. Next slide. Another new grant, the Reconnecting Communities Grant, about $200 million available for projects that reconnect communities by removing barriers. And you've seen this in a lot of them. This one, a lot of the grants have a planning component. Safe Streets for All as well had a planning component. They're not just capital grants. So this one also has a planning component. Applications due October 13th. And then another very interesting grant program. This is the Nationally Significant Federal Lands and Tribal Projects Program, $125 million. The region actually has been successful. The Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community did actually get one of these grants previously. So they are good opportunities. And what it is, it's really for those projects that are either within, adjacent to, or providing access to federal and tribal lands. 125 million, as I said, applications due the end of October on the 24th. Next slide. They like really long names with their grants. So this is the Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvement. A lot of people just know this. This is the CRISI grant. This is actually one that's been out there previously. But again, it's looking at improving railroad safety, efficiency, and reliability. This NOFA was just released with applications due December 1st. And then upcoming grant opportunities, I highlighted the one. It's the Tribal Transportation Program Safety Fund. This will come out in early 2023. It seems weird because we were just talking about the current 2022 cycle. They were delayed in getting out the original grants because of IIJ. So that'll be in early 23. The ones you don't see on here are because we don't have information on. There is the Protect discretionary grant, which are the resiliency grants. And then the one a lot of people are interested in are the electric vehicle grants. And we've yet to hear when those will, sometime later this year. Not sure which year they're referring to, but later this year, we'll start seeing those grants come out. So as we get those updates, we'll certainly provide those to member agencies and let you know. Next slide. With that, that concludes my presentation. I take any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you, Patrick. Are there any questions for Patrick?
I don't have a question, but I'll add, and maybe you're aware of this, but the Safe Streets for All, it's my understanding that the state is not an eligible recipient. And so, but cities, counties, tribes are, and that it does require some very specific things to be in your safety plan. So if anyone is updating their safety plan, you might want to make sure that you include those things so that you can be eligible for that in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Jack. Appreciate it. That does kind of beg a question. So for some of the local grants, do you mind just kind of going through, obviously, some stats for some of the smaller communities may not have an intergov or a grants administrator. Can you talk a little bit about how MAG can provide that information to all of the jurisdictions?
Yeah. Of
So
course,
as you get more information on
yeah,
it.
of course, Mr. Chair. One thing, and this is obviously one of those forums that we're doing this. We also had this item on TRC on the consent agenda. That may be something we bring forward. I think it's also getting that feedback from member agencies. What level and how do they want that communication provided? The one challenge has been previously USDOT's website, and within that FHWA, FTA, and FRA. Sometimes it's difficult to find the grant opportunities. They make it very difficult. I will say they have done a better job with the new infrastructure bill about highlighting the grant opportunities. For those that have never used it, grants.gov, which is the USDOT grant website, actually has a really, it's a good tool if you know how to use it, but it has a search feature, and you can search for all DOT grants. So, and that's USDOT, not just FHWA. So you can search that, and you can see, oh, hey, here's all the current grant opportunities. And then once you move into the actual grant itself, on the front page, it'll actually highlight, to Jennifer's point, eligible entities, anticipated number of awards, which I think is very interesting, that they usually know how many awards they anticipate doing and how much funding will be out there. So it gives just a little more context of, and also what they're looking for, what's eligible. So at least it helps member agencies think about projects they might have and then ping it against that potential NOFO or the NOFO. Hey, is this a good fit? Do we have a good project that would actually make sense?
Very helpful. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Stone. Very helpful information. My understanding is we are going to skip agenda item number 10, legislative update, for this session, and we'll move to item 11, request for future agenda items. Do any members have a request for future agenda item? Okay, seeing or hearing of none, we'll move to agenda item 12, comments from the committee. Any members have additional comments? All right. Well, with that, thank you, members and guests. That does convene the meeting. And the next meeting of the Management Committee will be on Wednesday, October 12th at 12 p.m. And that being no further business, this meeting is now